Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to another Wi-Fi battle. I know it's been a while, but LBA finally started back up, and if you guys don't know what LBA is, it's the Lithio Battling Association, or is it Battle Association? And it's a draft style league where we play by Smogon overused rules. The only difference is, we vote on some things, so like Mega Mawile isn't banned in this league. But for the most part, it is Smogon overused, and it's all draft based. So my first opponent is JJ Hernandez, and links will be in the description below. I don't remember his team name, and that's a bad thing, but what I noticed right off the bat, I'm just trying to fix this little cushion I'm sitting on. Sorry about that. What I noticed right off the bat, looking at his team, because we could all see everyone's teams that we drafted, and that's kind of the purpose. You're supposed to be able to counter team. Wow, I've been sneezing a lot lately. You're supposed to be able to counter team, and that's a really big aspect of the league. So when I was looking at his team, it's very it's just very clearly Rain, and I'll bring up the page so I can tell you guys like really what his team is. It's Talonflame, Latias, Politoed, Mega Swampert, Klefki, Empoleon, Tangrowth, Gallade, Electros, and Kingdra. So it was very Rain based, and I had to try and come up with a team to bring, and the team that I brought was the one that you see below. I originally had Lapras. I actually dropped it right before this is round one, right before round one happened, because I don't like Lapras. I like it as a Pokemon, but I don't like using it. It's just, I don't know what to tell you guys. It's just not that great. So I brought Mantine because obviously a Rain team, Mantine, very good. Now I went for an Assault Vest spread on this guy because, and something a little weird. I went for Assault Vest because a lot of the threats that I want to handle were special, but I also EV'd it to basically stop Mega Swampert 150%. So not only was it 252 HP and 252 defense, but I also threw Seed Bomb on there. Random as it seems, I needed that because that was the only way I could have beaten Swampert through that means. I brought Ditto because I figured, there were a couple of things that I was going to want to switch in defensively to get, like, immunities and stuff like that, so I figured that'd be pretty good for me. I brought Heliolisk. Dry Skin Heliolisk against the Rain is a very, very potent threat. And I brought Arcanine mainly because there were things that I wanted to grab outside of the Rain. I was debating between a couple of sets, and I settled for a weird one. It's mixed defensive. It's like a mixed offensive defensive thing. It has HP Grass and Overheat, as well as Extreme Speed and Will-O-Wisp. Mainly, it was there to beat Swampert one-on-one. Extreme Speed was there for Talonflame. I was considering going for Banded Physical Arcanine with Intimidate, but I wasn't really sure how well that would pan out. And some people did kind of tell me that it wasn't really that great, so I kind of sort of regret not using Banded Arcanine in this battle, and I don't remember if you'll see why or not, and I'll get to that in a moment. And I also brought Cresselia, because Cresselia not only is really bulky, but it also carries Trick Room. And with the Trick Room, he has a lot of swift swimmers. That would just be really, really helpful. And my entire draft-based team is very slow, so I could very use that against his Rain very easily. I also brought Mr. Mime, which was also defensive. It was like a defensive tank, pretty much. I gave it Lumiose Moss, and for those of you who don't know what that is a move that when hit by a water type raises the special defense. So I gave it Lumiose Moss and Thunderbolt, basically to handle Kingdra and Politoed pretty well. So I came, honestly, incredibly prepared for Rain. And what does my opponent bring? He brings Talonflame, Latias, Tangrowth, Electros, Gallade, and Empoleon. No Rain! So you may be looking at the screen wondering, why is it 5v4? We DC'd in the beginning, and I wasn't recording these live, so I don't have that. We DC'd, when I say in the beginning, it was 20 minutes in, and it was only 5-4. But basically, what had happened was his Gallade knocked out my Mr. Mime with a +1. Was it +1? Yeah, it was +1 knockoff, because I had switched my Ditto into Tangrowth, and I went for knockoff, and he switched in and got the justified boost. But before any of that happened, I was able to get rid of Gallade. I forget exactly how I did that. And I also knocked out his Electros because it was versus Empoleon. He was predicting me to go for a Volt Switch, so he brought in Electros to take that. But I was predicting him to bring in Latias, so I went for Hyper Voice to do as much damage as I could, and he ended up bringing in Electros to basically faint. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off the battle. Where we left off, it was Cresselia and Talonflame versus each other at full health. Unfortunately, there were a lot of things that, like, you know, Empoleon was paralyzed and had some HP gone. My Mantine had some HP gone to Stealth Rocks. Arcanine had only one more switch in due to Stealth Rocks. So, unfortunately, you know, a lot of HPs got regained, but is still a really great match from here. So, you know, going into this battle, knowing that it was Cresselia versus Talonflame, I was debating whether or not to switch out into Heliolisk or Arcanine, but I figured my best play here would just go straight for the Psychic, hoping he would Brave Bird my Cresselia, do some decent damage to him. He brings in Empoleon, and this is where, you know, a lot of the mind games were going on. You know, I could bring in Ditto, because I knew... Basically, at this point, I had brought in Ditto in the last match, and I knew he only had Stealth Rock, Scald, Defog, and Roar. So he had absolutely nothing for Heliolisk, right? So what I wanted to do is, I knew he wanted to get Stealth Rocks up, so I knew bringing in Heliolisk would be my best bet. Now, this battle did happen yesterday, or 2 days ago for me, or for you guys, 1 day for me. So I don't remember the exact turn of events, but I do know that I wasn't sure, you know, he had the Latias in the back. I wasn't sure if I necessarily wanted to go for the Hyper Voice, because, you know, it was a give and take, but I really was predicting either the Latias or the Tangrowth, so I go for Hyper Voice. I figured that was my best play. And knowing that I'm faster, instead of just simply switching out, I went for a Volt Switch just to get some good chip damage off. Now, as you can see, I am Life Orb, so that's going to play a huge role in this game. So Arcanine comes out because obviously Arcanine's really good against Tangrowth here, and since I'm special, it's going to do really well. And I knew his set as well from switching in Ditto the last turn, so it was Knock Off, Leaf Storm, Earthquake, and Giga Drain. Now, I was worried about him going for Earthquake, but considering that he was intimidated, I figured I could live without going for Earthquake. So I didn't go for Earthquake. Oh wait, no, yeah, sorry. Sorry guys. I actually went for Will-O-Wisp here, because I wanted to burn it, and -1 plus Earthquake, definitely not going to be touching my Arcanine. Thankfully, I actually get a burn off on Latias, which is going to be pretty important because Latias is kind of hard to take down when I am missing my Mr. Mime. So, I don't know what to expect here, but I figured Mantine was my best bet. It is Assault Vest, 252 HP, so I can take a Draco Meteor. Turns out he actually goes for Trick, and that is kind of where I was like, oh my god, this is not good, because I just gave a Latias Assault Vest. But this is where the burn comes into play, because the burn's going to whittle it down. It obviously doesn't have recover, so I'm going to be able to let it whittle down. And I figured I'm Choice Scarfed. I don't have much of a choice. I'm going to go for Icy Wind, get some damage off. My better play would probably have gone for Air Slash there. I don't know if I necessarily would have been faster than Latias, but I think that would have been a better play. Plus, I didn't really have much of a switch in. So, of course, Tangrowth comes in. I am going to switch out into Arcanine. I figured that was my best play there. I just figured. He goes for Knockoff. It's not going to do a lot of damage to me, but it is going to knock off my leftovers, which is really bad because obviously with Stealth Rocks out on the field, it's just not a great thing. So I actually here go for Overheat. I just kind of over-predicted. I thought he would stay in, predicting me to switch out. But I like the damage that Overheat did, and I was kind of really tossed in the air. I ran a quick calculation to see how much HP I would lose on the next switch in, and I did have another switch in, so I figured, great, I'll stay in. I mean, I'll switch out, you know, I don't have to worry about that. And I switch in Heliolisk, kind of hoping for, you know, a Scald. but that doesn't happen, unfortunately. So he roars me into the Mantine, and I know that switching out is basically futile because he's just going to go for roar again. So I stay in and I choose Air Slash, my best move against him. I could have gone for Scald, hoping for a burn, but I figured a flinch would just be a little bit more better for me. So I went for that. Now he does bring me into the Ditto, which is what I was hoping to come into, because now what I can do here is he can't really touch me with this, so what I can do is I can get up Stealth Rocks on his side of the field. But I want to bait him into defogging, because when I do that, that gives me a safe switch into Heliolisk, because he has Talonflame in the back. Remember, he doesn't want to... He really does not want to keep the rocks up, so he's gonna wanna defog. But unfortunate for him, he actually roars me right into Heliolisk, so he has no option to switch out other than to switch out, and I know that. So I go for Hyper Voice because I know that that's going to catch whatever he brings in really hard. And it does hit Tangrowth relatively hard, but unfortunately it's not enough for me to warrant going for another one. So I do go for Volt Switch here because I really don't have much of an option there. Tangrowth is definitely going to be hard for my team to break through if I can't break through it quickly enough. So what I do is I actually go into Ditto here. And that gives me a Scarf knockoff, which is going to be very nice. Plus, I kind of figured he'd go for Earthquake. So not only will I be able to eat up the Earthquake pretty well, I mean, I can obviously take it much better with Cresselia, but Scarf knockoff, and then I get Regenerator, so I'll get a lot of my HP back. So I figured that was just my better play. And it turns out to be a really good play for me because he does bring in the Latias. I'm not really sure why he brought in the Latias, but the knockoff did just basically take it out with the burn, which is really, really nice because now that Assault Vest Latias is gone, I can really not worry too much with the Heliolisk, and it's just overall a good time for me. So I switch out here because I figured he's going to go for Defog here, and if he goes for, Scald, get HP back. So I figured this was the perfect switch in for my Heliolisk. I could go for Volt Switch, I could go for Hyper Voice, but I figured at this point, I'm hoping I'm right here, I figured I'd go for Volt Switch. He's definitely going to be switching out. And obviously, with what he has left is just Talonflame, Tangrowth, and Empoleon. He's going to be switching into Tangrowth. So if I can get that sort of initiative for myself, switch out of Tangrowth, that'd be nice. Except I looked at my HP and I had 22 left. And I was like, ooh, this is not going to be good. Not sure how I'm going to come back from this. Because I obviously need Heliolisk to take out the Empoleon. So I just really did not know what to do. I go for knockoff here because I was expecting it to have Assault Vest this way. If I do bring in a Heliolisk, I'll probably get a little bit more damage off. And I was kind of hoping he would knock me off so I can go for Leaf Storm this next turn. But he didn't. He actually just went for Giga Drain. So I figured, okay, at this point I'm just going to switch into Cresselia because he really can't touch Cresselia. I have a Citrus Berry on this Cresselia because I wanted it to have somewhat of healing, but since I had Moonlight, I wasn't going to give it leftovers. So I figured if he wanted to knock off my Cresselia, so be it. I don't really need it. I have Moonlight. So I went for Psychic because good damage. He brings in Empoleon, and, obviously my Psychic isn't going to do very much to him. It doesn't really, obviously. And, with the leftovers, I just didn't know what to do here, I obviously couldn't bring in Heliolisk, so I figured my best bet was to just do... What did I do here? Why did I... Oh, right. I'm like, why did I bring it in? No, Stealth Rocks had been gone here, so I figured at this point he's going to set up Stealth Rocks instead of going for Scald. And even if he went for Scald, obviously I'll take that Scald really well. So he switches out the Empoleon here. Very obvious play. I think I still went for Volt Switch. Yeah, I did, which was a pretty poor play on my part, I'll be quite honest with you. I should have gone for Hyper Voice. But I think the reason why I went for Volt Switch there was because I knew I only had 2 attacks left with Heliolisk. So I'd rather risk him switching into the Tangrowth than really going for anything else. So I bring in Cresselia here because at this point that's really my best play for Tangrowth. And I go for Moonlight because I know he's not going to really be doing too much damage to me. And over the course of time, I'll probably beat this Tangrowth because now that doesn't have Assault Vest. You know, Cresselia's doing some decent chunks. So he decides to stay in, and I keep going for Psychic. Now, we actually do some good damage there. And he goes for Leaf Storm here, and he's just not doing a lot of damage. And I figured, you know, he's going to switch out here. And in comes Talonflame. So I had gone for Psychic. Now, I was debating really hard what to do here. Go for Psychic, go for Moonlight, but I went for Psychic because I figured if he decided to stay in, I'd rather get damage off. And here, I didn't actually expect Roost. I expected him to go for a Brave Bird to try and finish off Cresselia, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I'm thinking maybe he'll stay in and go for Brave Bird, maybe U-turn. Hopefully not U-turn. So I just stay in and go for Psychic, hoping to do some damage. Because, you know, again, I can't really switch in my Heliolisk. It has 9 HP left. And I can't really afford to switch into my Ditto there, just in case he did stay in with the Talonflame. But I stay in against the Empoleon, because I'm figuring he's going to go for Roar. Why bother switching? And thankfully he switches me right into Ditto, so I can get that Stealth Rocks up, which is lovely, because as you can tell from the course of this battle, he really does not want Stealth Rocks up on his side of the field. So as long as I can get that Stealth Rocks up, it's going to be a good time for me. So I get my Stealth Rocks up, and I'm figuring he's probably just going to roar me out, which is fine, and I'm praying he doesn't roar me into Heliolisk. Thankfully, he roars me right into Cresselia, and I was very thankful for that, because, you know, being roared into Heliolisk, who at this point is basically going to beat the Empoleon and help me secure my win, really important. So I figured he was going to go for another roar, so there's really no point in switching out. But he actually goes for Scald, and this is the turn where I kind of get screwed over. He burns me, and I'm fearful of the roars, so I don't really want to switch out. But honestly, I really should have. Instead of staying in, I go for Moonblast because I'm running out of PP for Psychic, and I want to save a Psychic for the Talonflame. Oh, was it not this turn? It wasn't that turn. I'm sorry, guys. Basically, what happened was I was afraid of roars, so I stayed in to go for Psychic, and he roars me right into Arcanine, and I had to make a decision here. Obviously, he was going to roar, because Arcanine can't really do very much to Empoleon, and I can't switch out. So I go for Overheat. I'm hoping it does enough damage to where whatever he roars me into can finish it off. And judging by the HP range that he had, it was. So 100%, I was a little nervous because I wanted to switch into Heliolisk to take the Scald, but then I realized Stealth Rocks was up, so I'm kind of glad I didn't make that decision. So he gets a little leftovers recovery, but I'm looking at that HP, and I'm thinking Psychic can take this out. It 100% can take this out. So I go for Psychic, and I'm like, great. This is awesome. It's going to take it out. Awesome. And it survives at 1 HP. And I just don't know what to do. He goes for Defog. So I could switch into Heliolisk here, right? I really could. I 100% could. But I'm worried, you know, because I only have 1 attack left with Heliolisk, right? I only have 1 attack. So if he goes for Scald, great, I'll get my HP back. If he goes for Roar, not a big deal. If he goes for Stealth Rocks, not a big deal. But I can't Volt Switch out on the next turn, so I decide to stay in and go for Moonlight. My best thought here was really bad. Really, really bad. I just thought I can take out Empoleon, and honestly, what I really should have done here, instead of A, staying in or whatever, I should have not Moonlighted there. I really should have attacked it with Psychic, because Psychic would have taken it out before that leftovers happened. But now I'm in a bad position because I'm losing HP on Cresselia. I'm going for Moonlight to hopefully get my HP back to a point where I can beat Talonflame. But it's just, I made a really bad mistake there. What I really should have done instead of Moonlighting there, or Moonlighting the turn before, I should have switched out into Mantine. Mantine was basically at full HP, so switching out would have basically given me Water Absorb. And I'm Scarfed, so I could just spam Air Slash. So I figured that out a little too late, and I switch out into Mantine, right? He does go for Scald, because obviously he has no other attacks, and I'll get some good HP back. Now, I wasn't as full as I thought it was, but either way. So, I'm Scarfed, so I'm going to go for Air Slash. I didn't know what he was expecting, but Air Slash actually turns out to be pretty good for me, because he switches out into Tangrowth, which is awesome, because that will just 100%, not really take it out, but it'll do enough damage, you know? And him seeing me do Air Slash, he's going to switch out here, but I still think I'm in a good position, you know? I have 4 Pokemon left, pretty much, but honestly, guys, that turn where I just made a mistake there. And from previous calcs, I knew I wouldn't survive a Brave Bird. So I was just swapping Heliolisk here for fodder, because I figured I was not going to get clear these Stealth Rocks anytime soon. So I went for it, and that was a really bad play, because he does go for Roost. And this is just where the battle fell apart. I just made a couple of bad mistakes at the end of this game. I was playing really well beforehand. Now he goes for Brave Bird. I brought in Cresselia on the hopes that I would survive a Brave Bird. I went for Moonlight. Unfortunately, I do not survive, and that's kind of why I should have switched out Cresselia earlier in the match, instead of letting it set up, or at the very least Psychic that Empoleon that one turn when he got the Stealth Rocks up. So basically, riding here, I have Ditto. I was really hoping that this Brave Bird would take it out, and I would actually clean up the rest of the match with this Brave Bird. I could very easily just beat it, but unfortunately, it does not take it out. And that's pretty much game from here, because all I have left is Mantine. So there's nothing I can do, and a lot of really bad mistakes on my part. Honestly, I gotta say, up until the last 10 turns, and I would say this was about a 60 or 80 turn battle if you include the DC, I think I did really well. Considering my opponent, who is definitely one of the top players in my division, I did really well. I prepared really well. I'm definitely getting really used to this draft-based thing. I really do think, even though I prepared for a rain team, I prepared really well for his team in general. I was ready for a lot of his threats, and that could just be proven by the fact that I had the lead for the majority of the game. And just the plays with the Empoleon at the last bit were just really bad. There were plenty of times where I could have taken out that Empoleon, and I didn't for some reason. I think in my mind, I needed the HP to beat the Talonflame, and I might have been right on that with the Cresselia, but I don't know. I don't know, and I think I misplayed there, and because of that, I lost. But you know what? I think I did really well. I still think I did really well, considering, you know, considering my team and how bizarre it looks on paper, and considering that he's definitely one of the better threats in the division. So while I did lose, I'm still very happy with the result, because I definitely did play very well. I had the lead for the majority of the game. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Peace.